I've never been much of a talker. I've worked under pressure for so long that I don't get rattled by just anything. My name is Robert, Rob to most. I'm 37, a K9 handler with the FBI, and I love the gym. Honestly, the gym feels like my first home. Keeping this body in shape takes living there. To be straight with you, my life has always been a manual of discipline. Locked-in body, strong mind, clean routine. That's my motto. I live in Miami, in a quiet high-rise in Brickell with my English bulldog Aslan, who snores like a freight train. I thought my life was exactly where it needed to be until my worst nightmare moved into the apartment across the hall. Because of some mix-up, Marlon, the most flamboyant gay man I've ever met, ended up right in front of my door. Door to door, and I hated it. On day one, some early 2000s Latin pop was blasting at 7 a.m. I'd just gotten home from a night shift, barely had time to drop my backpack and lock the door when the music hit. No way this guy is that loud, I thought, opening my door to check if the noise really was coming from across the hall. There he was, patterned pants, a bright tank top showing lightly toned arms, painted nails, mirrored sunglasses, and a tray with coconut cake, yelling for the building's cleaner to come over while they gossiped about some celebrity drama. Marlon's a medium-brown Latino guy, around 36, I'd guess 5'9". His curly hair was tied up in an eccentric style. His body looked like someone who hits the gym for 30 minutes and spends the rest chatting. Owner of a well-known restaurant in the historic district and, apparently, the new star of our floor. Before you judge me, let me explain. I'm gay, but I'm private, low-key, always have been. I'm not the glitter and confetti type. I came out late after years swallowing it down. In law enforcement, surrounded by tough guys, you learn to move in silence. That's why Marlon got under my skin. He was exactly everything I always said I didn't want to be. Over the top, flashy, way too effeminate. Before I forget, if you like true stories with a pinch of chaos, forbidden desire, and primetime soap twists, hit subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. All set? Cool. Let's keep going. Marlon decided to say good morning to me every single day, with a smile, a sweet cologne, and comments about my physique. Neighbor, if I need help changing a light bulb, you, with all that height, can lift me up so I can swap it, right? He laughed one morning. I rolled my eyes, but I won't lie. I looked twice when he turned to walk into his place. Little did I know that was the beginning of the end of my peace. A few days later, he knocked on my door. Hey Barbie, kidding? What's up, my strong macho closet-sized neighbor? Can I borrow a corkscrew? I broke mine trying to open a bottle with a flip-flop. Don't ask. I couldn't tell what annoyed me more, how comfortable he felt with me, or the fact that I found it funny. I went to grab the corkscrew and headed over to his door because he'd just left me to figure it out on my own. This guy's out of his mind, I thought. I rang the bell, even though the door was cracked open. In 5 seconds, he appeared wearing a red silk robe, a makeshift turban, and a lavender-something scent I couldn't place. Look who it is! I thought you'd send the dog with the corkscrew tied to his collar, he laughed, winking. Here, I said, handing it over and already turning to leave. Come in, man, I'm not charging yet. I'm cooking something for me, but there's enough for 2. Sit down, you'll love it. He touched my arm lightly, easy enough for me to pull away, but I didn't. I just got off work, I'm still in uniform. I was only dropping this off, I said, already with one foot inside. The place was so him, yellow walls, colorful art, a flamingo-shaped lamp, soft music playing, a parallel universe to my minimalist grey apartment that smells like disinfectant and runs on cable news ambience. You live alone? I asked, trying to keep things neutral. Lived with an ex for 2 years. Then he decided to trade up for a more intellectual guy. Cute, right? Anyway, good luck to him, he said, laughing as he stirred a pot with a wooden spoon. I perched on the edge of the couch like I was in an interrogation, but slowly loosened up. The smell of the food, the warmth of the place, the way Marlon walked around barefoot. Something about it felt absurdly familiar, intimate, inviting. Have you always been like this? I asked without thinking. Like what? He turned, spoon in hand, eyebrow arched. You know, loud, free. He smiled, but not mockingly this time. It was a calm smile, a little painful even. I've tried to dim myself, tried to walk straighter, talk softer, wear only black, like you. But in the end, I didn't fit that costume. Worst part, we hide to please people who'll never like us anyway. That echoed in my head, because deep down I knew what he meant. And it hurt to hear it. And you, neighbor, why do you hide? What's under that big bad wolf armor? I stood, unsure how to answer. I muttered an excuse, thanked him, and left. When I got home, Aslan ran over to greet me, but I couldn't even smile. I sat on the floor, leaned against the wall, and exhaled. The next few days were a strange blend of silence and expectation. Marlon kept up the over-the-top good mornings, the jokes, and that sweet cologne that seemed to follow me down the hallway. But I started answering. Nothing major, just a nod here, a mumbled morning there. Then on a muggy afternoon, fate, or the building's plumbing, decided to stir things up. A drip started by my front door, first faint, then relentless. Before I knew it, a dark patch spread across the ceiling and water was hitting the entryway rug. I called downstairs. The super came up, took a quick look and scratched his head. Could be upstairs or across the hall. The line that runs here probably feeds Marlon's place. I'll get maintenance up tomorrow. Great. Another night with a bucket on the floor. Next morning, as I took Aslan out, Marlon's door was open. I tried to walk past, but he called out, "Robert, Hulk of the floor, come look at this." I rolled my eyes but went in. Of course I did. He tugged my arm toward his bathroom. "See this, that stain on the wall? Water's bleeding through. I don't know much about pipes, unless they're not actual pipes, if you catch my drift." He winked. "But this looks connected to whatever's happening in your place." Before I could answer, Aslan barreled into the bathroom, sniffed everything, turned around, and then sprinted to the living room, launching himself onto Marlon's couch like he'd found his true home. Marlon cracked up. "Look at that. He chose me. Smart dog." He ran a hand down Aslan's back. "He's pushy but never outside our place. Sorry about him taking over your couch. He doesn't warm up to just anyone," I said, more surprised than annoyed. "Usually he growls at delivery guys. With me, he's a teddy bear. Dogs know their people," he said, scratching Aslan's snout. The dog was already snoring on his back, just like their owners probably. I pretended not to hear that, and that was how it started. A leak and an overly social bulldog. Aslan began slipping into Marlon's apartment almost every day. One door left half open, one moment of my inattention, and he'd trot across the hall like it was scheduled. Truth is, I let it happen, even if I wouldn't admit it. Each visit turned into an excuse for me to show up too. At first to fetch the dog, then to accept a coffee, a slice of cake, a bit of shredded beef faroffa that just happened to be left over from lunch. Until one day, I accepted a beer. We sat on his balcony side by side, Caetano Veloso humming softly in the background. "So, officer," he said, leaning on the rail, "you gonna keep pretending you don't like me?" I swallowed, but said nothing. He smiled. No mockery, just the calm grin of someone who'd won a battle without throwing a punch. I looked at him, at the loud clothes, big rings, painted nails, and realized he wasn't trying to be anyone but himself. And that, somehow, it disarmed me. I'd always thought I knew what I wanted and what I could tolerate. But there, next to Marlon, his scent mixing with beer and warm night air, I realized I didn't know a damn thing. The only thing I did know was that, for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to leave. It was on some random day, after a brutal shift, that things really changed. My body begged for sleep, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I walked into the building, gave the doorman a tired nod, unlocked my door, and noticed the wrong kind of quiet. "Aslan?" I called, already expecting the answer. Nothing. I sighed. I knew exactly where the runaway was. I crossed the hall, annoyed and curious in equal measure, and rang Marlon's bell once, twice, 3 times, nothing. I pushed the cracked door gently and saw him on the couch, out cold, with Aslan draped over his legs like a king. He wore only shorts, glasses crooked on his face like he'd fallen asleep by accident. Remote on the floor, some reality show murmuring on TV, that familiar sweet scent filling the room. I smiled in spite of myself. It was ridiculous. It was irritating. It was absurdly endearing. "Come on, Aslan, home," I whispered, trying not to wake him. Marlon stirred, blinked up at me and squinted, still half asleep. "Handsome neighbor. Pretty sure this counts as trespassing," he mumbled with a sleepy grin. "Your door was open. I came to grab the fugitive," I said, keeping my cheeks from burning. He sat up slow, stretching dramatically, and up close looked a lot better than I was willing to admit. I pretended to study the ceiling. "So, Rob, not even gonna sit? I promise I don't bite unless I ask first." My mouth answered before I could stop it. "A beer wouldn't hurt." His eyes widened, genuinely surprised. "Well, look who decided to live dangerously. I'll get one." I sank into the couch. For the first time, I really looked around at the photos on the walls. Marlon with friends, parties, trips. He was back in a flash, 2 cold bottles in hand. He sat beside me and passed one over. "Cheers, neighbor, to the first step out of your imaginary prison." "It's not a prison, it's just my way," I said with a low laugh. "Sure, the macho, rigid, rulebook way," he teased, nudging me with his bare foot. "And yet, you're starting to like me, aren't you?" "Marlon." "Shut up," I muttered, hiding a smile behind the bottle. He only leaned back, head on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. "You need to relax. Life's too short to be that serious, that controlled." The words echoed. I turned to him and, before I could chicken out, asked what had bothered me from day one. "Doesn't it get to you, the way people look at you?" He smiled, but there was a weight to it. "It used to. Now what gets to me is folks who won't accept themselves, who live for other people's opinions." Aslan purred in his lap, completely at peace. I breathed out. Somehow the 3 of us there made me feel calm, like I hadn't felt in years. That's when the door flew open and shattered the quiet. Marlon jumped like the couch was on fire. In the doorway stood a tall guy with a hard face and a smug look that sized me up like I was nothing. "What's this, Marlon? And who's the lumberjack?" he sneered. Marlon exhaled, clearly irritated. "This is my ex, Edward. Shows up to ruin my day again." Edward walked in like he owned the place, stopping right in front of me with a mean little smile. "So you're his latest charity case? Marlon's got a thing for rough stock. Some kind of kink, I guess." My jaw locked. Heat rose in my veins. "Edward, leave," Marlon said firmly, voice shaking. Edward smirked, unfazed. "You never change, Marlon. Still the loud, over-the-top drama queen nobody takes seriously. This guy'll figure it out soon enough. I've told you 1,000 times." Marlon said nothing, breathing heavy, eyes wet. That was it for me. I stood and faced Edward, colder than ice. "You've said enough. Get out." He took a step back, mocking but stubborn. How cute. The big guy protecting the showy star. Careful you don't become a joke too. He left, and the silence that followed was heavy. Marlon sank onto the couch, shaken. "See? That's how people see me, Rob. That's how it ends, sooner or later. You'll get tired too." He left, and the silence that followed was heavy. Marlon sank onto the couch, shaken. "See? That's how the world sees me, Rob. That's how it ends, sooner or later. You'll get tired too." So I sat beside him, searching for the right words. "Marlon, you're stronger than that, and if I'm here, it's because I want to be." He looked straight into me, vulnerable for the first time. Even knowing I'm loud and extra and unapologetically me. I didn't answer right away. My head screamed back off, but my heart had already chosen. "Even then," he smiled, fragile, real. And in that moment, I knew my rigid rule book didn't make sense anymore, because this man, exactly as he was, bright, loud, free, had already scrambled the order of my world. And you know what? For the first time, I wasn't mad about it. After that night with Marlon and Edward, something inside me wouldn't settle. Seeing Marlon so shaken hit me harder than I expected, and although I've never been good with feelings, always trained to swallow them down, keep control, never show weakness, every part of me wanted to protect him, and that scared me. In the following days, Marlon vanished from the hallway. No cheerful good mornings, no playful jokes, no sweet fragrance drifting through the corridor, and the silence bothered me more than the noise ever had. Even Aslan noticed, sitting by the door for hours, waiting as if he knew something was wrong. By late afternoon I gave in and knocked on Marlon's door once, twice, but nothing. And back in my apartment I tried to distract myself but couldn't. I didn't even have his number, and that thought ate at me. The next morning I brewed coffee, baked some frozen cheese bread, set everything on a tray and crossed the hall. When he answered, eyes red and hair messy, wrapped in that ridiculous flamingo robe, I told him I thought he'd vanished. He muttered that he was just taking a break from humanity, thanked me for the food and teased that I'd shown up on purpose in a tight shirt. For the first time in days I smiled and asked to come in. The place was messier than usual, but still him in every corner, and when I tried to bring up the other day he stopped me, saying he was used to it, that he knew when he came across as too much and when guys started to pull away. I told him I wasn't that guy, but he pushed back asking what kind of guy I was, because so far I'd kept him at arm's length while circling back like a ghost, and he was right. I was at war with myself, drawn to what I'd denied for years. I admitted I didn't know yet but was trying to figure it out. He looked at me with curiosity, like he'd found a crack in my armor, and asked softly, what if he walked away, if he stopped trying? And before I could think, I said I didn't want him to. For once, he was speechless, sitting down beside me, eating in silence before reminding me he wouldn't wait forever. I admitted I knew, and when he added that he was dramatic, loud and full of sparkles, I told him maybe that was his best side. He laughed, light and relieved. The tension between us shifted, and as we shared that simple breakfast like it was a feast, I realized maybe change doesn't come like an earthquake. Maybe it starts like this, sitting on the wrong couch with the right person. After that improvised breakfast, something shifted between us. It wasn't some cinematic twist or grand confession, but it carried weight, a kind of comfortable silence that only happens when two people, even with all their baggage, decide to stay. In the days that followed, I started seeing Marlon more often, not because he showed up, but because I went looking for him, sometimes with excuses, a tool I forgot to return, Aslan's constant disappearances, a random question about the plumbing. Marlon, for his part, kept making his jokes exaggerated, theatrical, but I noticed he walked a little softer around me, like he didn't want to scare off the skittish animal I still was. And the truth is, I liked that. One Friday night, I knocked on his door already knowing Aslan was inside, and Marlon answered with a crooked smile and 2 glasses of wine. "Not even gonna ask if you want it." "Already poured," he said. I accepted, because turning him down felt harder than giving in. We sat on the balcony again, music playing low, the city buzzing beneath us. I told him about my day. He told me about a client who wanted to return a dish because it had too much cilantro, and how he nearly got banned from Yelp for threatening to plant cilantro in the guy's car. We laughed, really laughed, and in the middle of that laughter, he looked at me differently, steady, serious. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "When was the last time you loved someone?" The question caught me off guard. The smile faded from my face. I looked at him, then at the floor. "Love is a luxury I don't allow myself," I admitted. He frowned softly. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard you say." "It's just the most honest," I replied. He stayed quiet, but his eyes stayed on me. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked. "I'm afraid of what you do to me," I answered. He leaned closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel his breath. "And what do I do to you, Rob?" My throat tightened. My mind screamed to walk away, but my body stayed. "You make me want to lower my guard," I whispered. His lips curved into a gentle smile, not triumphant, not mocking. He simply rested a hand on my knee, light, patient. "Then lower it, even just a little." That touch, so simple, felt like someone had switched on a light inside me. I placed my hand over his, not daring to look at him but not pulling away. We stayed like that for minutes, breathing in sync. "If anyone saw us, they'd make it a scandal," I said, trying to ease the weight of the moment. He chuckled. "Then close the window, tough guy. Let's enjoy this and don't pull back now. I like intensity. I laughed, really laughed, without walls, without guilt. And in that instant, I realized he was breaking through every barrier I thought was unshakable. The teasing was light, but it struck right where it mattered. For the first time, my laughter wasn't forced, it wasn't hidden, it was just me. Marlon moved closer, this time without asking, his knee brushing mine, his familiar scent filling the small space between us, his breathing calm but his eyes alive, full of a mix of desire and something softer. It disarmed me completely. "Tell me you're really here," he whispered, "that it's not just the wine or loneliness or the dog sneaking over." It took me a moment to answer, because everything inside me was pulling in different directions. Want, doubt, fear, but also something new, something that made me feel more at home in the middle of his colorful chaos than I ever had in my own gray silence. "I'm here, Marlon. For the first time in a long time, I'm really here." His smile was small, like a secret, like he was hearing a promise I didn't even know I was making. Then he leaned in, so slowly I could have stopped him if I wanted to. But I didn't. The kiss started tentative, careful, almost shy, like we were both testing the ground, but then it deepened, carrying everything we hadn't said until now, spilling out through touch instead of words. His hand cupped my face, the other trailing lightly down my chest as if mapping every crack in the armor I wore for years, and I let him. More than that, I pulled him closer, one hand on his waist, the other keeping him there like I was afraid he'd vanish. When we finally broke apart, we were both smiling, both out of breath. "Guess the big bad wolf knows how to bite," he murmured playfully. "And you don't seem scared at all," I shot back. "Scared? No, amazed. Completely," he replied, his eyes locked on mine. We stayed like that, close, the city humming around us, but nothing else mattered. For the first time, my guard wasn't up. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about rules, uniforms, or expectations. I was just there, with him. It happened on an ordinary Friday, after another exhausting shift when everything truly changed. My body begged for rest, but my thoughts kept racing. I entered the building, gave the doorman a weary nod, and unlocked my apartment door, only to feel something off. The silence was too heavy. "Aslan?" I called, already knowing there'd be no answer. I sighed. Of course, I knew exactly where he was. I crossed the hall, knocked once, twice, 3 times on Marlon's door. Nothing. The door was cracked open, so I pushed gently. Inside, Marlon was sprawled on the couch, fast asleep, with Aslan stretched across his legs like he belonged there. Marlon wore just a pair of shorts, glasses askew on his face, the TV playing some reality show in the background, and that sweet, unmistakable fragrance filling the room. I couldn't help but smile. It was ridiculous, it was frustrating, but it was also incredibly endearing. "Come on, Aslan, let's go," I whispered, careful not to wake him. But Marlon stirred, blinked, and looked at me through sleepy eyes. "Well, well, pretty sure this counts as breaking and entering, handsome neighbor," he mumbled with a lazy grin. "Your door was open. I came for the runaway here," I replied, trying to hide the warmth rising in my face. He stretched dramatically, showing more of himself than I was ready to admit noticing, and said, "So, Rob, not even gonna sit down?" "I promise I won't bite, unless you ask." Before I realized it, I was already answering, "A beer wouldn't be bad right now." His eyes widened in surprise, then softened. "Look who's living dangerously tonight, I'll get one." I sat down, my gaze drifting over the pictures on his wall, Marlon laughing with friends, celebrating, traveling. He returned quickly with 2 cold bottles, sat beside me and handed one over. "Cheers, neighbor, to stepping out of your invisible cage." I let out a quiet laugh. "It's not a cage, it's just how I live." "Sure," he teased, nudging me with his foot, "the tough by-the-book way, and yet you're still here with me, starting to like me, aren't you?" "Marlon, stop talking," I muttered, hiding a smile behind the bottle, but he only leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. "Relax, Rob. Life's too short to be all rules and no joy." His words lingered in the air. I turned to him, and before I could hesitate, I asked, "Doesn't it get to you, the way people look at you?" He gave me a small, almost sad smile. "It used to. But now?" What really hurts is seeing people who can't accept themselves, people who live afraid of what others think. Aslan snored peacefully in his lap, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. But it didn't last. The front door flew open, slamming against the wall, and Marlon jumped to his feet. A tall man stood in the doorway, his expression sharp, his voice cutting through the room. "What's going on here, Marlon? And who's this guy?" The tension in the air was instant. Marlon's jaw tightened. "This is my ex, Edward. He just loves showing up uninvited." Edward stepped closer, his smirk aimed at me. "So you're the new project?" Figures. Marlon always had a thing for the so-called tough ones. My jaw clenched, my pulse hammering. "Edward, leave," Marlon said firmly, though his voice shook. But Edward pressed on, words dripping with disdain. "You'll see soon enough, Rob. He's too much for anyone. Always has been." Marlon's silence spoke louder than words, his eyes clouded with pain. I stood, met Edward's gaze head-on, and said coldly, "That's enough. Get out." For a moment, he tried to hold his ground, but then he smirked and walked away, leaving the air heavy with unspoken things. Marlon sank back onto the couch, shoulders slumped. "See? That's how people see me, Rob. That's how it always ends. You'll get tired too." I sat beside him, steady, my voice firm. "No, Marlon. You're stronger than that. And if I'm here, it's because I want to be." He looked at me, truly vulnerable. "Even knowing I'm loud, dramatic, unapologetically me?" I didn't flinch. Even then, a fragile smile broke across his face, and in that moment I realized all my rules, all my rigid lines meant nothing anymore, because the man right beside me, loud, colorful, free, had already changed everything, and for once I wasn't afraid of that. After that night with Edward's interruption, something in me stayed restless. Seeing Marlon so vulnerable struck me in a way I wasn't prepared for. I'd spent my whole life swallowing feelings, keeping control, never letting anyone see beneath the surface. But now, every part of me screamed to protect him, and that terrified me. The days that followed were eerily quiet. Marlon stopped showing up in the hallway. No cheerful greetings, no playful jokes, no sweet fragrance drifting through the corridor. The silence weighed on me more than the noise ever had. Even Aslan seemed to feel it. He sat by the door waiting, ears pricked as if he knew something was wrong. By the second day, the emptiness gnawed at me. I tried to keep busy, but my thoughts kept circling back to him. I realized painfully that I didn't even have his number. What kind of neighbor, what kind of man was I if I didn't know how to reach him? On the third day, I stopped pretending I could wait. I made coffee, baked some cheese bread, and carried it all on a tray across the hall. I knocked. This time he opened the door. His eyes were red, his hair messy, his robe the same ridiculous flamingo print he wore when his confidence was low. "Thought you'd disappeared," I said, trying to keep it light. "Just taking a break from the world," he muttered, voice low. "But thanks for the food. That's actually pretty kind of you." "Bringing breakfast doesn't mean anything," I replied quickly. He raised an eyebrow. "Doesn't it? Then why show up looking good in that shirt like you didn't do it on purpose?" I couldn't help smiling. "Can I come in?" I asked. He let me. The apartment was messier than usual, but still his, vibrant in every corner. I set the tray down, hesitated, then started, "Marlon, about the other night." But he cut me off. "Don't. I'm used to it. I know when I come off as too much. I know when someone starts backing away." His words stung. "That's not me," I said. He looked straight at me. "Then what kind of man are you, Rob? Because all I see is someone who keeps his distance but still hovers around like a ghost." And he was right. I was trapped in my own war, wanting what I'd been taught to avoid, drawn to everything I'd denied. "I don't know yet," I admitted, my voice raw, "but I'm trying to figure it out." His eyes softened, curious, like he was seeing the crack in my armor. "And if I walk away? If I stop trying?" My chest tightened. "I don't want you to." The words escaped before I could stop them. For the first time he was silent. He sat beside me, picked up a piece of bread, ate quietly, then said, "You know I won't wait forever, right?" "I know." "And you know I'm dramatic, loud, and impossible to ignore?" I'm starting to think that's your best side. He laughed, relieved, almost boyish. The tension between us shifted, softened. We sat together, sharing that simple breakfast like it was something far greater. And I realized, maybe change doesn't come like thunder. Maybe it begins like this, sitting on the wrong couch with the right person. After that quiet morning together, something between us changed. It wasn't a sudden transformation or a grand declaration, but it was real. From then on, our encounters became more frequent, not because Marlon appeared, but because I found excuses to see him. A missing tool, a question about the plumbing, Aslan's constant escapes across the hall. Any reason was enough. Marlon kept up his playful banter, exaggerated and dramatic as always, but I noticed he moved with more care around me, as if not wanting to push me away. And the truth? I liked it. One Friday night, when I knocked already knowing Aslan had snuck inside, Marlon opened the door with 2 glasses of wine in hand. "No need to ask. I already poured," he said, with that sideways smile. I accepted. Saying no would have felt heavier than giving in. We sat on the balcony again, music playing softly in the background, the city buzzing far below. I told him about my long day. He told me about a stubborn customer who tried to return a dish for having too much cilantro, and how he almost made the man's car a cilantro garden. We laughed, really laughed. And in the middle of that laughter, he grew quiet, looking at me with a seriousness that caught me off guard. "Can I ask you something?" he said. I nodded, still smiling. "When was the last time you loved someone?" The question dried the smile from my face. I looked at him, then away. "Love is a luxury I don't allow myself." He frowned. "That's one of the saddest things I've heard you say." "It's the most honest," I replied. He didn't look away. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked softly. "I'm afraid of what you make me feel," I admitted before I could stop myself. He leaned closer, not touching, but close enough that I could feel his breath. "And what is it I make you feel, Rob?" My throat tightened. My mind screamed for me to get up, but my body didn't move. "You make me want to let down my guard," I said. His lips curved into the gentlest smile, not of victory, not mockery, just understanding. He set his hand lightly on my knee. "Then let it down, even if it's just a little." That small touch felt like a door opening inside me. I placed my hand over his, not daring to meet his eyes, but not pulling away either. We stayed like that for a while, breathing together in the quiet. "If anyone saw us, they'd make a scene out of it," I said, trying to lighten the moment. He chuckled. "Then close the window, tough guy. Let's enjoy this." For the first time, I laughed without defense, without shame. In that instant, I knew. Every wall I thought was unbreakable had already begun to fall. That night, everything changed. The laughter, the closeness, the way his hand rested on mine, it all built up to a moment I could no longer fight. Marlon leaned in, slowly enough that I could have stopped him if I wanted to, but I didn't. Our lips met, tentative at first, like we were both testing unfamiliar ground. Then the kiss deepened, carrying all the words we hadn't dared to speak, spilling out through touch instead of sound. His hand cupped my face. The other trailed down my chest as if mapping every scar in the armor I had worn for years. And I let him. More than that, I pulled him closer, holding his waist like I was afraid he might vanish. When we finally broke apart, breathless, we were both smiling, surprised by how natural it felt. "Looks like the big bad wolf knows how to kiss," he teased softly. "And you don't look the least bit scared," I replied. Scared? No. Amazed. Completely. His gaze locked on mine, steady and unflinching. The city buzzed outside, but it felt far away. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about uniforms, rules, or appearances. I wasn't hiding behind silence. I was just there, with him. The tension that had built for weeks now unfolded into something undeniable. Every word he had ever said about freedom, about not dimming yourself for others, echoed inside me. And in that moment, with Marlon's laughter still hanging in the air and his warmth pressed against me, I understood. My life would never fit back into the rigid mold I had forced it into. He had already broken it apart. And somehow that no longer felt like a loss. It felt like the first step towards something real. The days after that first kiss felt different, lighter, almost as if the air around me had changed. Marlon and I didn't need to say much. Things simply flowed. There were stolen moments in the hallway, casual texts filled with memes, morning coffee shared with cheese bread, evenings filled with laughter, and yes, nights that blurred the line between passion and tenderness. Even Aslan seemed to approve, claiming Marlon's couch as his second home. For the first time in years I felt at ease. Marlon was a storm of colors, jokes and warmth, and instead of resisting, I let myself be carried into the eye of that storm. I didn't have a name for what I felt, but I knew it ran deeper than I'd ever allowed before. One Saturday, Marlon surprised me. "Enough hiding, let's go out," he said, already in mirrored sunglasses and a tropical print shirt. "Out? Where?" I asked, suspicious. "The mall. A new restaurant just opened. They have jackfruit empanadas. You'll love it." I groaned. "Jackfruit? Marlon, really?" He winked. "Trust me. Different, just like me." Against my better judgment, I went. And to my surprise, it was good, both the food and the company. We laughed, shared dessert, and teased each other about store names and the way straight couples posed for selfies. Everything felt natural, until it didn't. We were in line at a cafe when a voice cut through the air. "Rob, didn't expect to see you out of uniform, man." My chest tightened instantly. It was Mac, one of my colleagues, a loud, larger-than-life guy who thrived on attention and didn't filter his words. He clapped me on the back, grinning. "And who's this?" His eyes flicked to Marlon, who smiled politely. "New friend," I said quickly, almost instinctively, the word slipping out like a shield. Marlon's eyes flicked to me, calm but sharp, carrying a weight heavier than any shout. "Stylish friend," Mac chuckled, not noticing the storm brewing. He cracked another joke, but I could barely hear it. My ears burned with shame. I grabbed the coffees, muttered an excuse, and pulled Marlon away. He didn't protest, but the silence that followed was louder than anything Mac had said. In the car, Marlon finally spoke, his voice steady, not angry, just heavy. "So that's who I am? A friend?" I gripped the wheel tighter. "Marlon, it's complicated." He turned his face to the window. "No, it's simple. You don't want to be seen with me." My chest tightened. "It's not that." "Then what is it, Rob? You're afraid of losing respect, afraid of being judged. So you hide me." The truth hit me like a punch because he was right. I wanted him. I wanted everything we had, but I didn't want the world to see. "Pull over," he said suddenly. "Marlon, pull over." His tone left no space for argument. I stopped by the curb. He opened the door, stepped out, and didn't look back. I sat there, hands gripping the wheel, throat burning with the taste of cowardice. Back home, Aslan whined at the door, restless, sensing the emptiness. And that night, sitting alone in my grey apartment, I finally admitted it. The world wasn't what was holding me back. I was. Marlon's absence was deafening. The apartment across the hall, once alive with music, perfume, and laughter, was now just a closed door. No cheerful greetings, no smell of cake drifting through the corridor, no Aslan slipping away to sneak onto his couch. Nothing. 2 full days passed like that, 2 days where I understood exactly what it meant to walk through a world without him. My mind replayed the scene at the mall over and over, punishing me with the memory of his silence, the way he pulled his jacket closer as if to shield himself from me. On the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore. I left work earlier than usual, showered, and put on the only shirt he had once teased me about, saying it made me look less intimidating and more approachable. Then I went to his restaurant downtown. The place was buzzing, full of customers, waiters rushing, music floating in the air, and there he was, Marlon, in his element, commanding the room, smiling, laughing, moving like the chaos itself danced to his rhythm. But when his eyes met mine, the smile faded. He turned his back, focused on a table. I walked closer. "Marlon, I'm not here to disturb you. I came to apologize, and if you let me, I came to be honest." He froze, then faced me again, eyes sharp. "So you're going to make a scene here in the middle of my restaurant?" I nodded. "Yes." Because this is where you're most yourself, and I need you to see me fully too. His arms crossed defensively. So what is it, Rob? Are you going to say you love me and then walk away again? I shook my head. No, I'm going to say I love you. And stay. A hush fell around us, customers pretending not to listen but leaning in. All my life, I continued, I thought being gay meant I had to be discreet, contained, almost invisible. I thought I could only exist behind closed doors, where no one could see. But then you appeared, with your glitter, your colors, your laugh, your cooking, and you turned my world upside down. And for the first time, I don't want to put it back the way it was. Marlon's eyes shimmered, his chest rising and falling fast. Do you even know what you're saying? Yes, I said, steady. I was weak before, afraid, but not anymore. If people ask, I'll tell them the truth. You're not just my neighbor. You're the man I love, my partner, the one who taught me to breathe outside the armor I built. The restaurant was quiet now, only the music playing softly in the background. Marlon stepped closer, searching my eyes, as if looking for cracks in my words. Then he whispered, voice breaking, Do you know how long I dreamed of hearing this? And I never thought you'd say it out loud. I smiled faintly. Then let me prove it's real. He grabbed my shirt, pulled me close, and kissed me, right there, in front of everyone. Applause broke out around us, some laughs too, but I didn't care. For the first time, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't afraid. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with tears, his voice trembling but firm. Welcome to the mess, Rob. It's ours now. From that night on, nothing was the same. Not for me, not for Marlon, not for the world around us. We left the restaurant hand in hand, Aslan waiting at the door with his tail wagging like he had been part of the plan all along. The next morning, Marlon showed up at my apartment with a small suitcase, 3 ridiculously colorful pillows, a plant taller than him, and a box full of glitter, sequins, and shirts with bold phrases like, I am my own standard. I'm just here to decorate, not invade, he joked, winking. And I let him. Within a week, my once sterile apartment had transformed, no longer a grey barracks, but a home alive with color, laughter, and Marlon. At work, the whispers began, the sidelong looks, the questions unasked. Until one day, Mac, the same colleague from the mall, cornered me in the hallway. So it's true, huh? You and Marlon? I stopped, met his eyes, and answered without hesitation. Yeah, it's true, and I'm happier than I've ever been. Any problem with that? He stared at me, and for a second I braced for the worst, but then he shrugged. Not my business, and walked away. No speech, no mockery, no applause, just normal. And somehow, that normality felt revolutionary. At home, I told Marlon the story, and he laughed until he cried. See, the world didn't end. Now you just have to take me to one of those police barbecues. Imagine the fun. One step at a time, I replied, chuckling. But if it's with you, I'll even sneak glitter under my jacket. Our life fell into a rhythm of its own. Sundays were for the farmer's market. Mondays, he forced me to stretch before training, blasting playlists that mixed funk with soul classics. Wednesdays were movie nights with popcorn, and debates over which of Charlie's Angels was the most underrated. And through it all, I no longer felt outside the standard. Because I finally understood, there is no standard for happiness. One evening, coming back from the store, we shared the elevator with 2 kids. When the door opened, one shouted, Mom, the strong guy came in with the colorful guy. Their mother blushed, embarrassed, but Marlon smiled. Colorful, yes, because the world is better with color. And this big guy here, he's my rainbow. I laughed, openly, without fear. That night, lying beside him, I whispered, You saved me, you know that? He shook his head, resting against my chest. I didn't save you, Rob. I just painted what was already there. You finally let it show. Silence wrapped around us. Do you still think love is a luxury? He asked softly. I smiled in the dark. No. Now I know it's a right, the most beautiful one of all. He kissed me gently, and for the first time in years I felt completely at peace. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And honestly, I wouldn't change a single detail. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever lived a love that had to stay hidden, or had to let go of someone just to find yourself again? Share your story in the comments. I read them all. Let's build this space together, for those who loved in silence, for those still afraid, and for those like me who are learning to love without disappearing. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. There's still so much life and so much truth coming your way.